I'm figuring myself out. That's what she said. That's the exact line that slipped past her lips, soft and certain, as if it were the most innocent excuse in the world. But tell me, how do you take that line seriously when just a week later she figured him out on the kitchen counter during lunch? Yeah, our kitchen. Our counter. The same one where I set down the groceries, where I'd leaned over with aching shoulders after long shifts, where we'd eaten pizza straight out of the box because dishes felt like too much effort some nights. That counter wasn't just wood and polish, it was ours. Or at least I thought it was. You want to know the worst part? I wasn't even home when it happened. I was at work, oblivious, checking my phone every hour like some lovesick idiot, wondering if she'd text me one of her usual updates. She always used to. Little things, the barista spelled my name wrong again. I saw the funniest dog outside the library. You won't believe what my coworker just said. I lived for those texts. They were like tiny threads that kept us connected even when the day pulled us in different directions. But that week they slowed. Then they stopped. At first I chalked it up to her being busy, maybe caught up in some new project or simply needing space. I respected that. I was raised to believe love wasn't about hovering. It was about holding steady even when the other person pulled away. But sometimes holding steady just makes you the idiot left standing still while the other person runs headfirst into someone else's arms. And you know how I found out, not from her. Not from him. From the faintest detail, the kind of detail that most men would miss but that stuck to me like a thorn under the skin. See, that night I came home, dropped my keys and noticed the faint smell of something sharp in the air. Cologne, but not mine. Mine was sandalwood, muted, earth. This was synthetic. A little too loud, the kind of spray some guy thinks makes him irresistible when really it just makes him noticeable. And then there was the bra. Yeah, you read that right. Left there like some pathetic calling card on the seat of my gaming chair. My chair, the one she always teased me for spending too much time in. You can't make this stuff up. I stood there staring at it like it might rearrange itself into something innocent if I blinked hard enough. Maybe she'd explain it away. Maybe it was hers misplaced somehow. But no, wrong side, wrong color. Not hers. I wish I could tell you I stormed into the bedroom right then and there, demanded answers and got the truth. But I didn't. I froze, because in that moment my brain was playing this cruel movie reel of possibilities. Her laugh spilling into the kitchen, his hands on her hips, the counter pressing into her back, all while I sat at work, smiling at spreadsheets, thinking about what to cook for dinner. You know what's fun? People always think betrayal is loud. They imagine yelling, tears, doors slammed shut. But the reality is quieter. It creeps in like smoke under the door, suffocating before you even realize the room is on fire. So what did I do? I picked up that bra, held it in my hands and sat down in the very chair where it had been left. I stared at the walls. I stared at the shelves stacked with our shared books, our framed photos, the little plants we kept killing and replacing. And for the first time I felt like a guest in my own home. Now here's where it gets tricky. I didn't tell her I knew, not right away. Some part of me wanted her to trip up, to confess on her own. Call it pride, call it cowardice. I couldn't bring myself to hand her the script for the breakup by confronting her. I wanted to see if she'd still lie, if she'd look me in the eye and tell me she was figuring herself out while all the while she'd already been figured out by someone else. But do you know what happens when you give someone rope? They don't always hang themselves. Sometimes they weave it into a noose for you. The next day she kissed me on the cheek like nothing had happened, made coffee, hummed to herself while scrolling through her phone, and I just stood there watching her, memorizing every twitch of her mouth, every flick of her eyes, trying to decode whether she was living with guilt or if she'd buried it so deep she couldn't even feel it anymore.
And that's when the paranoia sets in. That's when you start noticing things you wish you hadn't. The way her phone suddenly flipped screen down when it used to lie face up. The way she took longer showers. The way she laughed at something she wouldn't share, calling it just a dumb meme. It eats at you. It claws at your ribs. So here I was, balancing on the edge between truth and denial, clutching evidence that smelled faintly of another man, and still pretending our little world was intact. And I guess that's the question that gnaws at me still. Was I waiting for her to tell me? Or was I waiting for myself to finally believe what I already knew? Because sometimes it's not the betrayal itself that breaks you. It's the moment you realize you've been complicit in your own undoing, sitting in silence, watching the cracks spread, too scared to admit the house is already collapsing. You'd think once you know, once you have the evidence burning a hole in your hands, you'd want to rip the band-aid off and be done. But no. Betrayal doesn't work like that. It's sticky, tangled, complicated. I carried that secret like a stone in my chest, testing its weight every day, pretending not to notice how heavy it was. The bra? I shoved it into the bottom drawer of my desk. Not because I wanted to keep it. I wanted to keep her locked. I wanted her to have one more chance to prove me wrong, to come clean, to do something that showed the woman I fell in love with was still in there somewhere. But she didn't. She doubled down. Her smile stayed perfect, her tone even, her hugs just long enough to pass inspection. And for a while I let myself believe maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was hers, maybe I'd misremembered her size, her colors, but then the little cracks widened. There was the text message, not one I was meant to see. I was grabbing her phone from the couch to hand it over. When it lit up, lunch again tomorrow? Same spot, no name. Just a number I didn't recognize. She snatched the phone so quickly you'd think I'd pulled the pin on a grenade. She laughed too loudly, said it was just a coworker, and she shoved it into her pocket like it was contraband. I played dumb, nodded, smiled. My chest though felt like it had been hollowed out with a spoon. That night lying in bed I listened to her breathing. It was steady even, like she was already drifting into dream. And I stared at the ceiling, thinking about the life I thought we had, the routines, the promises, the inside jokes, all those small invisible stitches that hold two people together. And it hit me. She was unpicking every one of them, thread by thread, while I just lay there pretending to sleep. You know what hurts most? It isn't just that she cheated, it's that she didn't care enough to even cover her tracks well. That told me more than any confession ever could, because people only hide what they're afraid to lose. I started watching her, not in some creepy obsessive way, more like an investigator who already knows the crime but needs the evidence lined up neatly. Bow on top. I noticed how she dressed differently on certain days, a little more makeup, a little more perfume. She'd claim it was for work, but I'd see her checking her reflection in the hallway mirror before grabbing her bag, and I'd know. And then came the slip, the one that made my stomach turn and my fists clench.
We were having dinner together, take out the usual. She was talking about her day, something about a presentation at work, and in the middle of it she laughed, shook her head and said, "He always..." Then she stopped, mid-sentence, fork hovering halfway to her mouth. She looked at me like I might have caught it, and I did. She backtracked so fast it was almost comical. I mean, she always forgets to proofread. I didn't call her on it, just nodded, took another bite, and swallowed the bitterness along with the food. But inside I was done pretending. That night, while she showered, I pulled her phone from the nightstand. I didn't want to. God, I didn't want to be that guy. But when Hada's already dead, what's the point of respecting boundaries built on lies? My hands shook as I opened her messages, heart pounding like I was stealing something. And there it was. Thread after thread. The number belonged to him. The messages weren't graphic. Not always. They were worse. They were intimate. Inside jokes I wasn't part of. Complaints about me disguised as cute emojis. Plans for quick lunches that had nothing to do with food. And then the one message that cracked me clean in two. "Today was amazing. I can still feel you." I dropped the phone like it burned me. Do you want to know what I did? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I slid the phone back, sat on the edge of the bed, and stared at the floor until she came out in her towel, humming, smiling like the world was perfect. And in that moment, I realized something awful about myself. I was terrified of losing her, even though she was already gone. You'd think anger would take over, rage, violence, even. But no, what I felt was smaller, quieter. It was grief. Grief for the version of her I'd loved, for the man I'd been when I believed her, for the life I thought we were building. The next day I didn't go to work. I told them I was sick, but really I was just sick of lying to myself. I stayed home, sat in the silence, and tried to picture my future without her. And do you know what? I couldn't. Not yet. Because every image I conjured still had her face in it. But something shifted in me that day. I stopped waiting for her to confess. I stopped hoping she'd wake up one morning, racked with guilt, and choose me again. Instead, I started planning. Not revenge. Not yet. Just survival. Just the slow, steady gathering of strength you need before you walk into a storm and know you'll make it out alive. And part of me hated her for making me into this man, the kind who second guesses every smile, who notices every silence, who treats love like a puzzle to be solved instead of a gift to be cherished. But part of me hated myself more, because I let it happen, because I stayed quiet, because I couldn't bring myself to slam the door and walk out, not when every fiber of me still clung to the ghost of what we had. So I waited, I watched, I gathered the pieces, and slowly I began to build the script in my head, the one I'd use when the day finally came that I couldn't hold it in anymore. And let me tell you, that day was closer than either of us realized.
The day it all came crashing down wasn't some cinematic showdown with shouting and shattered dishes. No, it was a Tuesday, a boring gray Tuesday, where the world didn't bother to look up while mine quietly burned. That's the part nobody tells you about betrayal. It doesn't wait for weekends or special occasions. It shows up like mold creeping into the corners of your life, until you're forced to look at it and admit the air you've been breathing has been poisoned all along. I'd reached my breaking point. I couldn't sit at the table another night pretending to enjoy takeout while wondering if she'd let someone else feed her earlier in the day. I couldn't keep scrolling past her laughter in my head when it wasn't mine she was laughing with. So when she came home that Tuesday, humming to herself, shopping bag dangling from her wrist, I decided it was time. She set the bag on the counter, and started pulling out groceries. Bread, milk, fruit, normal, domestic, harmless. And I thought, isn't that funny? The most dangerous lies wear the calmest faces. I didn't shout, didn't accuse. I just asked one question. Who's he? Her hands froze on the bread. Slowly she turned, her eyes searching my face like maybe she misheard me. What do you mean? You know exactly what I mean. I said, steady, calm, terrifyingly calm even to myself. The one you've been meeting for lunch. The one whose cologne I smelled in this house. The one who left his mark on our chair. For a moment silence, then the performance began. She shook her head, laughed, tried to wave it off. Babe, you're being paranoid. There's no one. I cut her off. Don't insult me by pretending. I've read the messages. I've seen enough. Her face drained of color. Just like that, the mask slipped. She knew the game was over. As she started, then stopped. Her eyes darted, searching for an escape route. I didn't mean for it to happen. Those words, that cliché, they lit something in me I didn't know I had. You didn't mean for it to happen. My voice cracked, and for the first time in weeks, the rage finally burned through the grief. You mean you accidentally kept meeting him, accidentally laughed with him behind my back? Accidentally let him touch you in the place where we cook breakfast every morning? Tears welled in her eyes, but I couldn't tell if they were guilt or fear of being caught. I was lost. I told you I'm figuring myself out. I laughed. God help me, I laughed. A sound sharp and hollow. Figuring yourself out by letting someone else figure you out on the kitchen counter. That's one way to do it. She flinched like I'd hit her, but I hadn't. I never would. That wasn't me. My weapon was the truth, and I finally had enough of it to cut her to pieces. Do you love him? I asked, quieter now, almost whispering. Because that was the knife twist I dreaded most. Her silence told me more than words could. She opened her mouth, closed it, lowered her eyes, and in that silence, I died a little. Because if she couldn't say no, then what did that leave me with? I walked away, into the bedroom, into the drawer where I'd kept the evidence. I pulled it out, the bra still sitting there like a loaded gun. I dropped it on the counter between us. This is what you left me, I said. This is what you thought I wouldn't notice. Do you realize how little you must think of me to believe I wouldn't see it? Her tears spilled. She covered her face, sobbing into her palms, and for a second, just a second, I wanted to hold her, comfort her, because that's what years of love do. They train you to protect the very person holding the knife against your back. But I didn't, not this time. You had a choice, I said, voice low, steady. Every day you had a choice to tell me the truth, to come clean, to stop. And every day you chose him instead. So don't stand there crying like this is some mistake. It wasn't. It was a decision. Over and over again, she whispered, I'm sorry. But sorry is just a word, empty air. And in that moment I knew no arrangement of letters could patch the gaping hole she'd torn in us. I picked up my keys, my jacket, paused at the door. You wanted to figure yourself out? Fine, do it without me. Figure out who you are when you don't have me here to keep pretending with you. And then I left. I didn't slam the door, didn't give her the satisfaction of some dramatic exit. I closed it quietly, walked down the stairs and stepped into the night air, like a man stepping out of a burning building, coughing, scarred, but alive. The days after were brutal. Anyone who tells you walking away is empowering hasn't done it while still loving the person you left. Love doesn't switch off like a light. It lingers. It clings. It haunts. I caught myself reaching for my phone to text her about something funny, then remembering she wasn't mine anymore. I found her hair tie under the couch and had to sit down because it felt like a relic from another life. But slowly, God, so slowly, I started to breathe again. I told a friend. I told my brother. Saying it out loud made it real. Their anger on my behalf reminded me I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't imagining things. I had been betrayed, and the only way forward was through. Do you know what I learned? That betrayal doesn't define you unless you let it. It carves you open. Sure, but what grows back can be stronger, sharper. I started running again, something I'd abandoned years ago. I picked up books I'd meant to read. I sat in silence and let myself feel every jagged edge of the hurt, until it dulled. And one night, weeks later, I cooked dinner for myself. Nothing fancy, just pasta. But I set the pot down on the counter. That same counter, and for the first time it didn't feel like a crime scene anymore. It felt like mine. Because here's the truth. She might have figured him out on the kitchen counter during lunch. But I figured myself out in the wreckage she left behind. And maybe that's the most human thing of all. To be broken. To be betrayed and still to choose, somehow, to rebuild.